Long time no see. I want to talk a bit today about the significance of being present at a death. I was present when my dad passed away a couple years ago, and I also recently had the opportunity to be present at another loved one's death. I think these are really meaningful moments for both the person dying, but also for the person who is observing it. Now, because this is the internet and everything is taken so literally sometimes, you get to know your own boundaries. If you couldn't make it because you were traveling or couldn't make it in time, that's fine. We all get to make our own choices. And I'm not here to shame anyone for not being present. So I was there for my dad's death for a couple of reasons. Part of it, which just had to do with he was my dad. I felt like I owed that to him. That was my way of expressing respect and appreciation for everything he had done for me. Also, it was during COVID, so I ended up being the only person who was there, and I was never going to make my dad die alone. For my loved one that passed this week, I had been stepping into a role of primary caregiver, and I made the decision for myself that I found a lot of meaning in being present for my dad's death, and I wanted to do the same for this person. And the more I think about it, the more I think that being present was also my way of expressing love. Whether you want to think of that as a acts of service kind of love language type of thing, or just that was my way of expressing my love and appreciation. When my dad died, I was really afraid of the moment of death because it really felt like I was lying down on the train tracks and just waiting for the world's slowest moving train to hit me. And I'd stress about it and stress about it and stress about it. And when it came time for it, when I was sitting at his bedside and I understood that it would be happening soon, I found it more manageable than I expected. Not that I wasn't overwhelmed by grief and sadness and general fear from the things we don't know. If you had asked me a few months before that about how I would handle that moment, I wouldn't have even known how to answer that question. I think that when it came, I think the advantage of my dad having been sick prior to this meant that I had time to emotionally prepare. We obviously don't really know someone's awareness about their end of life. So it may have been that my presence meant nothing because the person dying had no idea I was there or no real meaning attached to my presence. Or maybe they could hear me, or maybe they could make sense of it amid all of the systems starting to shut down. And if there was a possibility that I was offering some small reassurance by being there, that made it all worth it to me. Just the off chance that I was going to bring some sense of comfort. And while I'm not really religious, I do think there's something holy about that moment when breath stops. And it feels like it goes on for a really long time. Like I felt like I was holding my breath in that moment. Part of that is just because as they start breathing more slowly, each breath is further drawn out. So the last few in particular really felt like, is this the last one? And then there was another breath up until there wasn't. And it feels really significant. There's just something really beautiful about that. And also for each of them, I sat with them for probably the course of an hour or two. And there aren't like dramatic changes, but there are more subtle ones where they really go from being a person I know and love to being a corpse. And there's also something really reassuring in that, where I can look at them and feel like, oh, the person I love has slipped out the back door, they've left the party. This is what used to be them. And it almost helps with this really meaningful sense of closure of this is the end. And being present at the end of their lives also provided a sense of purpose. There was something for me to do rather than just kind of waiting or like sitting at home waiting for a phone call. I could actively be there, actively participate in the care, And whether or not they were really aware of my presence or the things I did, I think that was really helpful for me in to sort of just have something to do. Classically, I'm someone who never knows what to do with my hands. And I think also if I were just waiting for this to happen at some point and I had no idea what was happening, someone was just going to call me or something like that, I would be at a loss for how to spend my time. Whereas being there, I knew how to spend my time. I could sit there and hold their hand. I could go do the dishes for the people who may have been coming in and out of the house. By not just keeping myself busy, because there were a lot of moments of stillness and there were a lot of moments of quiet where I could just reflect on my life with the person and with what life will look like now that they're gone. So everyone's end of life arc looks a little different. In my experience, it's at least 24 to 48 hours of general unconsciousness, which, saying that out loud, it sounds exceptionally stressful that they're just lying there and you need to figure out what to do for that long. It's almost meditative, the things you can find within that. So for my dad, I put on a lot of his old records and listened to music with him. I put on some of his favorite TV shows like MASH, and I just sort of got to live in his world and honor the things he loved. And I thought about the things that if I were at the end of my life, what would I want to hear? What are the things that someone could tell me or play for me that would carry meaning for me? And more recently, because it wasn't in COVID like my dad, we had a lot more visitors, which was actually really nice to be able to sit around the bedside and just talk and share memories. And I think that it doesn't have to be somber. It can be an occasion to reflect and be grateful and laugh at all the joyful memories you shared. And finally, I think being present for these deaths helped make it feel real for me. There are people I've lost where they were far away and I either couldn't go to the funeral or there weren't services. And then it was just kind of it, but it never really felt solid for me because there was no sense of closure. There was no sense of something ending. It felt almost like someone who I had just lost touch with. And these experiences allowed me to kind of take root of this moment in time and affirm for myself what was happening and how I was going to manage it going forward. And that's not necessarily an easy thing to do, but it has been a necessary part of my grief process. Generally speaking, I don't think there are a lot of wrong ways to grieve. I think there might be ways that are more hurtful to yourself or others, but generally speaking, if it helps you, it helps. So I would love to hear from you about, have you been present at a death? Did you find it helpful? What did you derive from that experience? Until next time.